You know, if you think about the structure of the book of Proverbs, how it begins, it really begins as a father-son talk. You really don't get to Proverbs as a list of Proverbs until chapter 10. So the very first thing on my list of what it means to speak wisely shouldn't surprise us. Speaking wisely means godly instruction to children. Turn to Proverbs 4, 1 through 4. I want to read a couple of sections here. Hear, O sons, a father's instruction, and be attentive that you may gain insight. For I give you good precepts. Do not forsake my teaching. When I was a son with my father, tender, the only one in the sight of my mother, he taught me and said to me, let your heart hold fast my words. Keep my commandments and live. What do you notice in this little section? Anything strike you? Okay, I think that's one of the things I notice. Generational. A father has instructed his son, and now he, as a father, instructs his son. And that's so important, right? Bob was coming up to me with some insights this morning and just talking about the fact that, you know, we're kind of one generation away from things being very different in a church, right? We'll either be growing or we'll be losing, and a lot depends on how well we've communicated faith to the next generation. So, speaking wisely is going to involve this godly instruction. I want you to look at one more. Proverbs 6, 20 through 22. My son, keep your father's commandment, and forsake not your mother's teaching. Bind them on your heart always. Tie them around your neck. When you walk, they will lead you. When you lie down, they will watch over you. And when you awake, they will talk with you. One of the things I want you to notice here is the addition of mother, your mother's instruction. How important was your mother's instructions to you growing up? Anybody? Wasn't important at all, right? Well, in my case, my mother was the Christian in the family. My mother taught me to pray as a young boy, introduced me to Bible reading, took me to church. There's a lot of things of moral instruction that parents do. In fact, the character of a child, you know, their moral groundings are formed fairly early. You know, we're talking in that 6 to 9 year age group. And so what we do and what we teach them is very, very important. Now, that doesn't mean someone who had a messed up childhood can't become a Christian and have transformation. I believe they can. But we give our children a gift when they've received godly instructions. Now, I kind of want to ask you, what are the ways you did it? If you have done it, what are the ways you did it?
Transporting them to church events.
Okay, bringing them to church events. Greg?
I'm just asking, once again, raise your hand and I'll get the mic to you, please.
Okay. Okay, transporting them to church events so the home audience hears. I think that's important. I think it's important for them to have an identity with Christians. Dawn, I'll go, and then Mary.
With my mom, it was she was the seeker in the family. So she was always kind of took the lead. So we prayed all the time. We sang. She would ask Dad to do a devotional. So it was stuff at home that we would do. And so that carried over in our family. That's just something I grew up with.
Okay. Mary?
That's what I was going to say too about singing.
Okay.
Singing a lot and those songs you memorize and.
By example.
Okay.
In all things. And then reinforcing it with explaining why.
Okay. I think we're in the position. Do children ever ask why? We're given this blessing of children who ask why, and we have opportunities to explain why. By the way, I read a recent study about families where their children will maintain the faith have to have multiple faith experiences during the week in their family. In other words, going to church on Sunday morning won't do it. I think it's an important part of the mix. But children are needing to see some sort of faith experience in the family life during the week. And that may include prayers, at meals. It may include a prayer at night. It may include a family devotional. By the way, that's easier to do while your children are younger. It gets harder when they get to be teenaged and your schedule gets full and a lot of things. So I suggest doing it younger at least. So these faith experiences are very, very important. So speaking wisely means godly instruction to children. Now, the next one kind of just logically follows. Some of these are just going to seem like, that makes sense. I would have expected this to be in Proverbs. Speaking wisely also means instruction for others. Let me give you some passages. Proverbs 10, verse 11. The mouth of the righteous is a fountain of life, but the mouth of the wicked conceals violence. Proverbs 10:20. The lips of the righteous feed many, but fools die for lack of sense. Proverbs 15:2. The tongue of the wise commends knowledge, but the mouths of fools pour out folly. What do you see in these three proverbs? Oh, you're all sleepy today.
For good or for evil, our words definitely will influence others,
Okay.
and other people's words will influence
Okay.
us and our approach.
Okay? And we want to be talking here about the good use of words. So it's not just with our family, with our children at home, it's also in our community. And notice that, the wise words are life-giving, right? So how do we do instruction in day-to-day life with other people? Anyone feel like you've had experiences with that? Okay, Teresa.
I pray, if I think I'm going to have an interaction and,
Okay.
To ask for wisdom,
Okay.
just for that kind of, I just try to remember to pray before I have something that I'm going to do that's important. Or like when I was spending time with Ryan and Rhonda on Friday, I asked for the ladies of the church to pray for me for interactions with Ryan,
Okay.
so that I could influence him maybe.
Okay. Bill. One of the things, I'm trying to think of the situations where we give instruction, but we may be asked for advice, right? And the difference between our advice and maybe some of the advice in the world is it will be godly wisdom rather than worldly wisdom. Bill?
Well, we were talking about words that we use, how that affects others and how others' words do affect us. I think we all know that it's not just words, but it's how we say things. And
Okay, you're way ahead of the lesson. Go ahead and say it.
yeah, it's really, we work on conditioning our heart, and that helps us say the right words in the right way. And I've had to work on this my whole life, and I've had close friends tell me that I wear my emotions on my shirt sleeve, and I didn't really, understand that until I really had to think about it. It's our eyebrows, the creases on our face, everything speaks. And so the more conditioned our heart is, the better the visual.
Okay, you're way ahead in the lesson, but that's fine. That's usually Dave's job to get me ahead of the lesson. Yeah, that's all right.
As far as the church here in Granville, we came here, we had a really young group of young people would come to each other's homes. Every week we'd have a get-together. And of course, the parents had to bring them because the kids couldn't drive. And so they would stay in our house, and we would visit and encourage each other and pray together.
Okay.
And then have a meal, have a lunch together or something. But that brought everybody closer as a closer-knit family. We got to know all the kids, they got to know all the parents, and we had a closer-knit congregation.
Okay.
So we let's get together a lot.
I know some are being very hospitable in our congregation, and that gives opportunities for people to get to know one another and have those conversations. Dennis?
When I was in the service in Maryland, I worked at the chaplain's office there at the Prince George's Hospital. My most moving experience was visiting a family that was, the brother hadn't spoke to his own brother for 20 years. Now one was dying. And I walked in the room, and by being quiet and not saying much was more for them. And I just read a scripture to him, and just it calmed him down. Sometimes lack of words is sometimes better than trying to speak too much.
Okay. Let's move on to the next one. Speaking wisely means encouragement for others. Take a look at Proverbs 12:25. Anxiety in a man's heart weighs him down, but a good word makes him glad. Look up a little bit, verse 18 of that chapter, 12:18. There is one whose rash words are like sword thrusts, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. Okay, let's talk about they're very different proverbs, obviously. Do any of us go through anxiety? Yeah. Have you had encouraging comments as you went through anxiety that helped you? What kinds of encouragement have you received that helped with anxiety? Okay, reassurance that things will be all right. Mary, was that what you were going to say? Close.
That God sees me,
Okay.
and He's interested in me.
Okay.
Okay, now I gotta do something really off topic. I'm sorry.
Okay,
I forgot to mention prayer for Bill, because he gets a new knee on Friday.
a new knee on Friday, okay. We'll pray for Bill's knee. Ann?
The encouragement comes from someone who has been through a similar situation,
Okay.
and that carries weight.
Okay, I think often the painful things we've been through become areas where we can minister to other people who have been through that painful situation. So painful situations can prepare us for certain kinds of ministry and ministries of encouragement. One of the things I think we have to do when we're encouraging others is we have to get outside of our own selves. If we're only thinking about ourselves and what's going on in our life, we're not going to see the other person and maybe their need for encouragement. And, encouragement is important. When you see people who are doing good things, or you see people who are struggling in some way, there may be things that you can say that help. And the testimony that I hear from people is those things matter, right? Words of encouragement matter.
I got a quick comment.
Sure.
It's not a proverb, but it definitely has to do with encouragement. From Romans 12, verse 8, encouragement is a gift that is given to some of us by God. It says, if your gift is to encourage others, be encouraging. And that's Romans 12:8.
Yeah, and some people may be especially good at it. Barnabas in the early church got nicknamed. His name means son of encouragement. So encouragement is one of the ways we wisely use words. Steve.
Hey, Russ, this verse in Proverbs, where you just read it, do you think it could also apply to, it's easy to assume when we see somebody discouraged that a good word, a positive word, can change things for that person. Could it also be when we don't know how people are feeling, just having a positive attitude or being encouraging and not negative or glass half empty all the time? Is it also an awareness that we need to be positive even when we don't know how people are feeling, because we can affect those that are having struggles?
Okay. I buy that. I think we are a people of faith, right? That's who we want to be. That's who we are. And faith means I can face all kinds of challenges, right? And I know ultimately God is going to take care of me. I just realized I didn't talk about the second one of those Proverbs. It's very vivid. Some people's words are like sword thrusts. Have you ever met someone like that? Okay, Bill has his hand up.
Yeah, about the sword thrust thing. One, and maybe some other words to embellish on this Proverbs 12:18, that we can be quick to correct other people because in their mind they may feel that they're right, but we somehow have to soften what we say, not be so quick to quit, because what's more important, that we're right and that we win the argument? Maybe it's not an argument, but we just need to be better listeners and not making sure that others are correct, because that can be a sword in itself.
Okay. And the opposite of the sword thrust are healing words. So we can be healing to people, especially people who are wounded. And that's one of the ways we can be of encouragement. You know, one of the things I would advise all of us is, you know, pay attention to people's reaction to your words. Because sometimes you can see in facial expressions that they were hurt in some way by your words and you didn't intend it. In other words, I think we learn to use words by observing how our words affect others. And as we observe how we affect others by our words, then we can kind of begin to match our speech to, well, what are we intending here? What are we trying to accomplish here? And that takes observation in life and seeing how people respond. Next one, speaking wisely means counsel to others. Take a look at Proverbs 27, verse 9. Oil and perfume make the heart glad, and the sweetness of a friend comes from his earnest counsel. Proverbs 10, 31 to 32. The mouth of the righteous brings forth wisdom, but the perverse tongue will be cut off. The lips of the righteous know what is acceptable, but the mouth of the wicked what is perverse. Have you ever been put in the position where people seek your counsel? No one? They actually ask for it? Okay. Well, you do for the audience at home. I think when I was younger, I sought counsel from people. It meant usually people older than me, more experienced than me. So kind of recognize that that may be a role that you play in someone else's life. And, given all the sources of counsel in the world, do you want them getting counsel off the TV? Do you want them getting counsel just off the internet at large? Dennis.
Remember when I was younger, I was a youth director. I was looking maybe to be one full time. I went to a particular congregation, and they had a meeting with me, and they asked me a couple of really hard questions. If my daughter came to you and said, "I'm having this problem," would you come to the parents and tell them what she said? I said, not necessarily, depending on what the problem was. If it had to do with something life-threatening or life-changing, probably would, but otherwise it would be between us. They wouldn't let me even talk anymore. They said, that's it. They wanted everything. It's like they're going to wait for me to explain everything that their teenagers wanted to say or do. So there was no counseling allowed privately. So I had a real problem with that, and I would not be part of that congregation because there had to be discretion in what you say and what you pass on.
Wise counsel is still something I'm receiving from my mom, who's 100. So
Okay.
she still has it to give, and I'm still learning.
Okay. I don't think any of us feel like we probably have, that we know everything or that we're necessarily got it together in every situation. So wise counsel can be valuable to us. Speaking wisely means correction and rebuke of others. Take a look at Proverbs 28:23. Whoever rebukes a man will afterward find more favor than he who flatters with his tongue. Proverbs 25:11 and 12. A word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in a setting of silver. Like a gold ring or an ornament of gold is wise reprover to a listening ear. And then, of course, we've read these before. These are Proverbs 26:4 and 5. Answer not a fool according to his folly, lest you be like him yourself. Answer a fool according to his folly, lest he be wise in his own eyes. So I want to begin the discussion, first of all, between what's the difference between correction and rebuke?
Y'all just sat closer together. My job would be easy.
Correction is, I think, is a matter of advising somebody to do something a different way.
Okay.
Rebuke is telling them they're wrong.
Okay. Anybody else? Well, I think the dictionary definition of rebuke is going to include harshness with it. It's going to express a sharp disapproval of something. So, we in our wisdom have to use when are we correcting and when is it kind of sharp, and what are some of the situations in which a sharp correction occurs? Okay, emergency situations of danger. And I think this is especially true with our kids when we're correcting them. If they're in danger, we're probably a little sharper with them because we're not wanting to fool around here. We're wanting to get the child out of danger. And it could be an adult that we're correcting. We're wanting to get them out of danger. Any other reasons why we may be sharper with our correction?
I would say when we know that they know for sure that they're wrong.
Okay, I think when they're not paying attention, when they're not listening, and maybe when they're being disrespectful, we may be a little sharper with the correction. Now, I don't think we go about correcting everybody, right? So who are the people we're more likely to correct and why?
Perhaps, Russ, those that we've already established a relationship, they know that there's a love there that can't be broken, and in that way, they're more easy to receive the rebuke than somebody who seldom talks to you, and they see a situation, and then they approach you after not talking to you for so many weeks, and now you come to me and want to rebuke me. That's hard to take sometimes.
Okay. So I think relationship, I don't think we correct everything we ever see that's wrong. I think we give grace to people at times, right? Because are we ever in the wrong? Probably, at times. So I'm not certain we pounce on every little thing. We probably don't like the person who is always criticizing others. So there's a line here. I think correction is important. A lot will depend on the importance of the correction. How serious a matter is it? We may let certain things go.
I think assuming positive intent is a great way to start.
Okay. In other words, you're assuming that they've intended the best, but maybe the best hasn't happened in that situation. Dave?
especially when you're teaching Bible to others. And Sharon and I, over the years, have taught many people in their homes, in our home, and you don't want to give too much information right away. You want to find out where they're at. And I experienced this problem and studying with a young man, and he said, I want the truth. I don't care who's got it, I want the truth. So we sat on the couch, opened up our Bibles together. I mean, we were doing pretty good until we got to baptism. He did not believe baptism was essential for salvation. And I said, well, so we went to Acts 2:38. Said baptism is for, F-O-R, the remission of sins. And he didn't believe that. I said, well, God says it is, and you say it isn't. Who shall we believe, God or you? Shouldn't have said that. There's too much information at one time because he closed that Bible, didn't want to study anymore.
Okay.
So you want to give people, ease people into Bible studies and not go way ahead of where they're at.
Okay. I'm going to put the next point up as a signal to everyone. Let's move on. But we'll let one last comment in.
Oh, dear. I was moving back to rebuke. I received a very good rebuke from somebody who was a total stranger to me. I was working with a dog, and the dog was disobeying, and I was tugging on his collar. And I was just saying, stop it, stop it, stop it. And somebody shouted out the car window, stop doing that. And they were right. I was not correcting the dog anymore. I was just totally in my own mind. Sometimes we see something and the people are total strangers, but we still need to get them to stop it.
Okay. I would say this is one of the more difficult ones to be wise in our speech. Speaking wisely means expressing love for others. Proverbs 27:5. Better is open rebuke than hidden love. And, I think it raises the danger of our not expressing love. And we need to make certain we do to our family. It can be difficult for some of us. I grew up in a family that did not say, I love you very much. And I probably haven't said it enough in my adult life. Hopefully I did better than my parents, but I probably didn't do as well as I should have. But this is a reminder that love shouldn't be a hidden sort of thing. Rebuke's not, right? You're expressing rebuke, you need to express love as well. Speaking wisely means blessings to the speaker and to others. And I'm just going to let this one pass because I'm looking at the clock and I've got 10 minutes and I want to try to get through the rest of these that may be helpful to us. Speaking wisely is not just a matter of what you say, but how you say it. Take a look at, we've just read it, but it applies in this section too. Proverbs 25:11 through 12. A word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in a setting of silver. Like a gold ring or an ornament of gold is a wise reprover to a listening ear. So here it's not just a matter that you've reproved them, but you've used the right kinds of words. So it's not just a matter of what you say, but how you say it. Take a look at Proverbs 15:28.
Well, I was going to say, sometimes I think we need to watch humor. When we think we're making humorous comments to each other that are hurtful.
Okay.
That's, a matter of how you say things.
Okay.
And sometimes sarcasm is just a mean way of trying to get somebody.
Yeah, I think sarcasm, humor at other people's express is sometimes kind of veiled anger. You're getting at the other person. Proverbs 15:28, the heart of the righteous ponders how to answer, but the mouth of the wicked pours out evil things. So how we say things, and I said earlier in the class, one of the things we can do is as we use words, take note of how people respond to them. Because often we can read expressions. We can know whether there's shock or there's hurt or there's anger or, any number of expressions. Were they interested? All those sorts of things. And that can help us begin to use our words better. So it's not just a matter of what you say, it's a matter of how you say it. Speaking wisely is not a matter of it's not just a matter of what you say, but when you say it. Proverbs 15:23. To make an apt answer is a joy to a man, and a word in season, how good it is. Notice the word in season. So when you say something may matter. Proverbs 25:15, with patience a ruler may be persuaded, and a soft tongue will break a bone. So maybe it's when you say it, and it may mean it takes patience over time saying it. I can't. You need to speak a little louder.
I just wanted to know, what was the previous verse you just mentioned? That was a good one. It was about the season, about when we say it.
15:23. 15:23.
Thank you.
And by the way, all of these are on the handout, which is on Facebook. So if you want a list of these passages, they're available to you. Speaking wisely. Go ahead, Dennis.
One last thing. I worked for a funeral home for a number of years, and one thing I found can be taken both ways, and usually it's negative. They're in a better place. That implies that they're better off dead than alive. And people, you may mean well by this, well, they were suffering, but the family takes it personally as a negative because now they're not with them. So how we say it and where we say it and our tone of voice makes a big difference how it's received.
We could probably come up with a whole list of things not to say at funerals. And I usually try to just keep it simple and keep the focus on the loss they feel. Speaking wisely is using the right words to diffuse anger and increase persuasiveness. We've seen this as we've gone through Proverbs already. Proverbs 15:1, a soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Proverbs 15:4, a gentle tongue is a tree of life, but perverseness in it breaks the spirit. Speaking wisely comes from being wise. Speaking wisely comes from being wise. Proverbs 16:23, the heart of the wise makes his speech judicious and adds persuasiveness to his lips. So how do we do this one? Well, we pursue the path of wisdom. We gain wisdom over our lives. And as we do, our speech will probably be better because of it. Wisdom will help us know what to say in various situations. When we're young, that can be tough. What do you say in certain situations? I'd never done a funeral until I came here as a minister. And my first funeral was of a non-member who had died of a drug overdose. Batsell Barrett Baxter didn't have me write one of those sermons in class. I just wasn't in the assignment list. So, Age, I think, helps us. Gaining wisdom helps us to be wiser over time. Speaking wisely also comes from purity of heart. Proverbs 22:11. He who loves purity of heart and whose speech is gracious will have the king as his friend. So, Proverbs helps us in some ways. We have to meditate on it, I think. I don't think there's necessarily quick answers to how to use words wisely. But we begin to understand we're going to have to use words in our everyday speech, with our children, with others, in giving counsel and encouragement, and even correction in places. All those are part of the human experience. But if we are grounding ourselves in God's wisdom, and if we are grounding ourselves in a purity of heart, remember Mark 7 when Jesus talks about what's in our hearts will come out. And he gives us this long list of sins. Out of the heart, the mouth speaks. If we're pursuing wisdom and we're pursuing purity of heart, we will do better with our words. Thank you very much. I see that, depends on which clock I'm looking at. This is confusing. My clock says 12 after, and that one says it's almost time. So let me give you a preview. We've spent 3 weeks on speech. It seems like a terribly long amount of time, and yet we speak a lot, right? Maybe it does correspond with what we do in life. The next thing we're going to look at has to do with material possessions. I use the word wealth kind of in an economic sense, that it's just whatever we have, that's our wealth, physically. Now, we may think about spiritual blessings too, and I agree with you. There's a lot of simple things that we enjoy that maybe we don't own and possess. But all of us have something. We may not view ourselves as wealthy, but we all have certain means that we use in our life. And Proverbs gives us a perspective on wealth that I think will help us. So come back next week. We won't talk about words. It'll be worse. We'll talk about money, Thanks.